Hey guys, doing this while I got opportunity right now. The matriarch is outside watering her plants before it gets really hot out here. Um, but hold on, sorry about that. But that's what I was talking about when it comes to opportunity. You got to be a little careful. Hold on. Hey guys, I'm sorry about that. Like I said, it's opportunity and just not taking any chances here. But like I said, the matriarch's outside watering her plants. So every time she lowers the water, because she's got one of those guns where you just use your thumb or your hand and you pull down the lever and it turns on and all that. Basically, makes it sound like she stopped just to see what's going on, kind of deal. But anyway, to get on topic here, and I do apologize if you hear any boom boom sounds. There's going to be like notifications and texts and all that, as well as a big boom. It's like a decline from the bank and all that. Um, but I wanted to come on here and talk about something that's really interesting. After the recent issue came out, I think it was issue 79, I believe. It was issue 79. Let me double check. Saw I saw Mega Beatman's review on it, and it was basically the issue we were all looking forward to, if you will. It was the issue where you would potentially get the final confrontation between Whisper and Mimic. It was basically the final confrontation, if you will. Yeah, it's issue 79. Just want to make sure. And like I said, it's labeled basically as the final confrontation, and pretty much spoilers. It does feel like it is the last confrontation because in the end you have Mimic basically taking his own life. Attempting to do the old, attempting to do the old. If I can't win, I'm taking you with me, or if I gotta go, you're going with me, kind of deal. You know what I mean? He has this fire core, if you will, that gives him a little bit of power to kind of get on equal terms, even with someone like Silver, and he basically stabs it to essentially prevent Whisper from getting in the last blow. Because basically, what happens here, from what I understand, I haven't gotten the issue yet. But from what I understand, basically Silver, Tangle, and Whisper set Mimic up, and because they obviously had heard he was last seen in certain areas, so they knew, hey, the only way they're going to draw him out is to have Whisper act like she's low. And so, anyway, basically, long story short, the plan works. Mimic does give him a bit of a run for the money, but in the end, it does come down to the fact that he's just getting overwhelmed, no matter what shape he takes. And it finally comes down to him and Whisper, and Whisper's getting, like I said, getting ready to deliver the final blow. But he takes his dagger, his sharp dagger, that he carries with him, and he stabs the fire core he's wearing, that he got from Dr. Starline, and basically once he stabs it, it causes a huge explosion that knocks Whisper away, basically knocks her unconscious, but it knocks her to the point that she's falling to the ground. And then on the other end, you see him falling, but you see him obviously engulfed in flame, like he's pretty much on fire. And there's like little pieces surrounding him, so you don't know if that's debris or that's maybe pieces of him. No one really knows. That's up for debate. But yeah, Whisper does survive. I mean, I even said in a video, hey, you have nothing to worry about when it comes to Whisper here. She's going to survive. She's going to be fine. Sega's not going to allow an established character that's also been in some of their mobile games, if you will, has been referenced in other games as well, other games and media as well. They're not going to let her die. They're not just going to use some random issue like issue 79 and let her die. So anyway, she does survive, thanks to Tangle, who actually is able to finally control her Wispin, her little weapon that she uses to utilize the power of the Wisp, that have always been with her since since the OG Diamond Cutters were taken out, thanks to Mimic. So, excuse me. So anyway, Whisper's elated. She realizes after Tangle saves her, that it's done. It's finally done. It's over. It's finally over. That her team, her original OG team, has been avenged, and now she can finally move on with her life, or at least move on from this chapter of her life. And even Silver asks her, what is the guardian angel of the battlefield's next move now that her main priority, her main goal, to avenge her former team is accomplished. And Whisper's like, Whisper obviously, admits that she didn't think, that well in advance. And you have Tangle go like, hey, why don't we just start by taking you home? By taking you home, going home, and celebrating. Kind of enjoying some time, relaxation, and that's what they do. They end up going home and everything after that, and obviously, just by Tangle saving her, and then the ending that you'll see here with them, that's going to give off a lot of, especially on the last week, because this was, believe it or not, ironically released on the last week of Pride Month. Last month. It's released in the last week of Pride Month, and some reviews are coming out on the last day, if not the last weekend of Pride Month, which was yesterday, Monday the 30th, and then 29th and 28th before that, and so on. So obviously that's going to give off vibes of, hey, is Sega going to finally allow something like, a little romance, even if it's LGBTQ, to occur between characters like, let's say, Tangle and Whisper. That's going to be up to Sega. I think Sega will be okay with them, kind of teasing it, kind of teasing it and giving hints here and there, but they're not going to full on let them, become an item. They're not going to full on let them become a couple, but they're just going to give, little moments here and there. They might even allow a kiss on the lips between the two, that being Tangle and Whisper. They might allow that, but they're not going to allow anything to go any further than that, because again, you got to remember, this is a game franchise, and obviously Ian Flynn doesn't want to, especially now that he's part of the Sega team, or at least the Sega console that gives his what's he do? He kind of gives his advice or gives his opinions on it or something. I don't know. Almost had a brain fart thinking about that. um, but yeah, I don't think Ian Flynn wants to go down that route, even if it's not Sonic involved in romance. He doesn't want to go down that route with even Tangle and Whisper. But I think again, Sega would be okay. He would be okay, and others working on the comic would be okay with maybe giving little hints here and there, as well as even maybe giving the big old kiss on the lips between the two down the line. But obviously, the question is, what is the next step for Whisper? Because when she found out basically that it was finally over, not only was she crying tears of joy and everything, but she was speaking more regularly. I mean, yes, she kind of went back when Silver asked her what was next. She did kind of go back to her more whispery, kind of shy tone, if you will, very, shy, whispery tone. She went back to that, but before, when she realized that it was finally done, she was elated, and she started to act more natural. Her voice was back to being more natural, if you will. But then again, like I said, she did kind of go back into the into the very silent, somber tone. Well, not somber tone, but very silent, shy tone when Silver asked her, what was next. So so obviously the question is, what is next for Whisper? Well, obviously, her main objective, her main goal to, truly avenge her friends, the main objective of that might be done, but there's still some unfinished business. And obviously, she's going to take a break a little bit, enjoy life, probably, get back to, probably get back to being more, more sociable and everything, back to what she was prior to this whole situation. And again, showing signs of that, after finding out that, it was over with Mimic. So I could see her slowly in the story regaining the confidence to, no longer, I'm not trying to think about what I'm going to say here. Like I said, it's opportunity time. I'm trying to take as opportunity much as I can, much opportunity as I can, because, you never know. And also, I'm just here, keeping an ear out for things like the cooler just went on, so it's like, you just got to be careful and stuff. But anyway, though, like I said, I think what's going to happen character-wise is she's going to slowly, kind of regrow again. She's going to slowly regain, with the help of Tangle, with the help of Silva, but mostly Tangle, she's going to regain that confidence again to go back to being who she was prior to everything that happened, as well as being as well as showing that emotion after she realized the thing with Mimic was done. I see her slowly regaining the confidence to be, very sociable, no longer be missed. Well, okay, and all that. Instead of being like, yeah, I like that idea. Let's do that. Go back to being, that way, being more exuberant, if you will. And a lot of people say that her losing her mask, that the wisp mask, or not well, it's kind of the wisp mask, if you will. Losing that kind of is a sign of, maybe she is going to move on. The wisp, the mask, the wisp mask of hers, if you will, the diamond cutter mask of hers, she's always going to have that. Obviously, it probably got damaged, but it can be repaired. Go to Tails, get it repaired. But yeah, I think outside of that, I do agree that is kind of a sign. Having her seen without it for right now is kind of like the sign of saying, yeah, she's gonna be more open. She's gonna grow and become more open. She's gonna go back to being, the Whisper we saw in the flashbacks, prior to the whole situation, where she's exuberant, excitable, not so, yeah, let's do it all, and all that. Instead it'll be like, yeah, let's do it, being real excited and everything. So I think that's what's next for her character development wise. Is she's going to get back to, thanks to the help of Tangle and maybe some others, she's going to get back to being, excitable and everything, more acceptable, more sociable, more, spoken and everything, more, more 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 wordly with what she says, more vocal, more boisterous, if you will, more boisterous, if you will, more vocal. We'll put it that way, more vocal. Easy for me to say, more vocal. In her words, more boisterous, more boisterous. That's what I'm trying to say. So I can see that being the next step for her. As far as Mimic goes, a lot of people feel like, based on, how he was last seen, basically falling in a ball of flame, and then the pieces around him possibly being pieces of him and not debris. People are saying that, yeah, he's pretty much DEA dead. DEA dead. Done, finished. And this does kind of remind me of what Ian Flynn said, I think, one time in a post. He said that he wants to utilize comic book deaths of villains as well as even heroes. He wants to utilize the fact that when you kill them, they're done, they're dead, they're not coming back. And that might be true, and that might be true for Mimic. Like, hey, he gets killed off, and that's it, no more Mimic. But here's what's interesting, though. Here's what's interesting. Eggman has been seen to take control of people that he pretty much feels is standing in his way. So who's to say? So, and we saw that with Clutch. He has some kind of mind control thing on Clutch to make sure he's obedient to him. So who's to say he doesn't have Starline tucked away, maybe in a tube, if you will, floating in some kind of tube, if you will, chemical tube, healing him up and getting ready to maybe make sure he's subservient to him and him alone. Who's to say that's not on the, that's not, something that's on, on the table for the future. And thus, it makes you wonder if, he's going to probably, trying to think of the right words to say, it makes you wonder if maybe Eggman will find the remains, or if not remains, but basically the near dead body of Mimic, and try to repair him, as well, try to heal him up in a similar fashion that he's doing with Starline, if that's true. So that way Mimic comes back and maybe he's half cyborg and everything. And, his shape-shifting abilities might be, enhanced or limited. There's that possibility. But again, seeing him, seeing him be ended the way he was right now, like I said, it reminds me of what Ian Flynn said, even back when he was writing for Archie, that when a character dies, they stay dead. You know, he's because basically Ian Flynn has made it clear he's one of those people that will kill a character off, hero or villain, and when they die, they stay dead. You know, they're not coming back. But this is one of those situations to where, you know, people say, yeah, it's an all ages comic, and you don't really need to see the body to know that, hey, this guy is dead and all that. He's history, you know, and I do agree. And seeing basically the silhouette of potentially what happened to Mimic is a good way of saying, yeah, you know, he's not coming back. But like I said, if you know what we saw with Clutch is any indication of what Eggman can do, and let's not forget, Eggman, even when he was being written for in the Archie Sonic books, has been known to really taken up a notch when it comes to, you know, playing God, if you will, when it comes to, you know, playing God, playing master, if you will, when it comes to certain individuals and making sure they fall in line. You know, so I can potentially see if they want to bring Mimic back, you know, Eggman finding what remains of him, you know, barely alive, and that's doing potentially, in my opinion, what he's doing with Starline, and that's just healing up his body and then maybe getting ready to fix it up, so that way maybe they'll have cybernetic, but they're also obedient to him with, you know, and thus kind of making sure there's no chances or traces of betrayal in, you know, in them or even thought of, you know, in their minds. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Right now, it does feel like he's gone. He's history, and if that's it, that's it. So again, you know, we'll see what happens. Now, some people might even take that as another sign that with the whole thing going on with IDW behind the scenes, you know, depending on what you believe, you know, maybe the ending of Mimic here is just like another sign of, yeah, they're going to be wrapping this comic up real soon, you know, but when and where that's going to happen is going to be up to them. I'm not saying it's going to get wrapped up, but again, depending on what you believe on the financial situations when it comes to IDW, you know, depending on what you hear about them and all that from the likes of Clownfish and others, it's uh it's going to be real interesting to see what the you know see what happens and all that. But you know, again, that's you know, but like I said, people will look at that as you know, look at this as like, hey, you could have held this off to at least maybe the anniversary issue, you know, issue 100, you know, and make it one of the more prominent, you know, featured battles and all that, confrontations, you know, finalities, and then move on from there. But instead, you want to do it here. So again, it's going to make people think, but we'll see what happens. You know, I hope the comic continues for a long time because Sonic, you know, this comic to me, this comic is just, you know, it's just beginning. This comic to me is just really starting to find its footing. And there's so many other characters that even now Sega themselves are more um, they're more willing to allow to be you know added to the established cast of whatever Sonic media is out there. So to me, if this comic continues on for a long time, maybe you know I would say 75 75 100 issues more, you know maybe 125 issues more, and then to me that's good because like I said, it's got some to me it feels like it's just starting out and we're getting ready to take that next massive step. And you know, we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do because a lot of people want to see certain characters in there, if you know what I mean. But we'll see what they do. But right now, the question is always going to be, you know, what is Whisper's next step in the story, continuity wise? And like I said, I feel what's going to be her next step is she's going to, you know, thanks to the help of, you know, thanks to the help and support of Tangle and Silver to an extent, but mostly Tangle, she's going to become more of her old self, more of her old self again. You know, more outspoken, more boisterous, if you will, more boisterous in her, in her speak. Like I said, be more outspoken. She's gonna be more sociable, more excitable. She's gonna slowly get back to who she was prior to the whole situation that caused her to end up the way she was throughout most of the comics run. But we'll see what happens. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. How do you feel about the whole situation here when it came to the Whisper Mimic situation? What do you think is the next step for Whisper? Do you agree with some of the things I said? And do you think maybe this is a sign ending this thing early, you know, instead of doing an anniversary issue or something? or even spreading it out in a couple, multi-parts, issues. Do you think maybe this is a sign that the comic could be wrapping up with IDW, or do you think the comic is just like me? I firmly believe it's just starting. It's just starting. It's just starting to find its footing, and it's going to get ready to take off to that next level. If what I just said isn't the case, which I pray to God it is not. Um, but let me know what your thoughts are. And do you think Mimic is dead, or do you think he could potentially end up being, brought back to life by Eggman, maybe through a healing tube, like maybe what he's got Starline in, to make sure that when they're healed up properly, he can fix them up and make them obedient to him without any traces of betrayal or stuff like that in them. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Let me know down below in the comments. Follow the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description, guys, to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. It'd be greatly appreciated if you could help me out in those areas, as well as check out the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, give me your thoughts. Love to hear how you feel about all this and what I had to say. And until then, guys, I am out. Take care. God bless.